January 17, 2026, a date that may one day be remembered not as a trade dispute, but as the moment the United States stopped leading alliances and started charging rent for loyalty. This wasn't just another round of tariffs, it was a signal, a shift from covenant to contract, from leadership to leverage. Scripture warns us about moments like this. Woe to those who join house to house and add field to field until there is no space left. Isaiah 5:8. Greenland suddenly looks like a gift, the world's largest island, 38 million tons of rare earth oxides beneath melting ice. A missile defense position so perfectly placed, it makes Pentagon planners dream. But the Bible has always been suspicious of gifts that arrive too easily. Bread gained by deceit is sweet to a man, but afterward his mouth will be full of gravel. Proverbs 20:17. This is not a clean win. It isn't even a clean loss. It's the ancient dilemma Scripture calls short-term gain versus long-term ruin, what economists call guns versus butter, repackaged for the 21st century. By solving one problem, resource security, we risk triggering a chain reaction that could hollow out American industry, fracture our alliance network, and quietly hand global leadership to China. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. Proverbs 22:3. Let's walk through the math. Why Greenland? Because the ice is melting. Southern Greenland's Kvanefjeld project sits atop one of the largest undeveloped rare earth deposits on Earth. Nearby Tanbreez holds heavy rare earths, dysprosium, terbium, the invisible elements that make F-35s fly and submarines stay silent. China controls 80–90% of global rare earth processing, not mining, processing. That's the choke point. In a serious conflict, Beijing could cripple American defense production within months. Greenland holds only 1.25% of global reserves, until you realize it ranks 7th worldwide and contains the largest undeveloped heavy rare earth deposits on the planet. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates 7.8 billion barrels of oil and 91.9 trillion cubic feet of natural gas beneath West Greenland. On paper, it looks like salvation. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. Proverbs 14:12. Resources are only half the story. The Earth is not a perfect sphere. It's an oblate spheroid, flattened at the poles. That geometry matters. The shortest path for Russian ICBMs and hypersonic glide vehicles isn't over oceans. It's over the Arctic, over Greenland. Pituffik Space Base houses radar systems that buy the United States minutes that separate deterrence from annihilation. Greenland isn't just land. It's the front porch of North American defense. History whispers encouragement. Alaska, Louisiana, deals mocked at the time, vindicated later, but Scripture reminds us that context matters. Do not move an ancient boundary stone set up by your ancestors. Proverbs 22:28. Alaska was sold willingly. Louisiana was sold willingly. Greenland is not for sale. Denmark has said no. Greenland's own government has said no. Its people oppose it. When acquisition replaces consent, vision becomes coercion. European diplomats already call it Crimea 2.0, a comparison that should chill anyone who understands the role of moral authority in global leadership. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin condemns any people. Proverbs 14:34. Now comes the part that should keep us awake. Assume the United States succeeds. Purchase, pressure, whatever mechanism. We get Greenland. We extract the resources. What happens next? Economists call it Dutch disease. Scripture calls it trusting wealth over wisdom. Whoever trusts in riches will fall. Proverbs 11:28. The spending effect inflates wages and prices. The resource movement effect drains labor and capital from manufacturing. The currency effect strengthens the dollar until American exports become uncompetitive. Apply this to a country already hollowed out. For decades, America believed the lie of the smile curve, that design and branding mattered more than making things. Manufacturing was outsourced. The middle was abandoned. Greenland's resource windfall would accelerate that decay. A 10–15% dollar appreciation would crush exporters like Boeing, Ford, Intel, and the factories that close won't be in Washington. They'll be in Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania. The Bible warned Israel of this exact temptation. You may say to yourself, "My power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me." But remember the Lord your God. Deuteronomy 8:17–18. The counterexample is Norway, but Norway had wage coordination, fiscal discipline, and institutions designed to prevent distortion before the oil arrived. America does not. Greenland's workforce is 36,000 people. One mine needs 5,000 workers. That's not development, it's administrative domination. And now the final layer, alliances. NATO is not just weapons, it's trust. Let your yes be yes and your no, no. Matthew 5:37. When the United States threatens tariffs to extract territory from a founding ally, every other ally recalculates. If Denmark can be coerced, who's next? The EU is already discussing its anti-coercion instrument, built to counter China against the United States. Germany is rearming. France is pursuing strategic autonomy. Europe isn't leaving NATO, it's emotionally checking out. Trust is not lost overnight. It erodes transaction by transaction. Meanwhile, China offers something far more powerful than ideology: consistency. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. Proverbs 11:1. China doesn't change deals every election cycle. It builds ports, railways, trade corridors. Indonesia, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, all hedging, not out of love for Beijing, but fear of American volatility. While Washington fixates on ice and minerals, Beijing is rewriting trade routes. This is the Greenland trap. By chasing rare earths, we surrender trust capital. By securing territory, we lose influence. By solving yesterday's security problems, we create tomorrow's collapse. The lesson of Greenland is not really about an island. It's about how great powers fall. Empires rarely collapse because they are weak. They collapse because they misread what strength actually is. Rome did not fall the moment barbarians crossed its borders. It fell when it replaced citizenship with extraction, loyalty with tribute, and moral authority with force. Scripture describes this pattern with frightening clarity. You say, "I am rich, I have acquired wealth, and do not need a thing." But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. Revelation 3:17. Greenland tempts America into believing that power is still measured by land, minerals, and choke points. That belief would have made sense in 1956. It is dangerously outdated in 2026. The real battlefield today is not territory, it is trust. Trust determines supply chains. Trust determines alliances. Trust determines whose rules shape the future. And trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. By attempting to acquire Greenland through pressure rather than consent, the United States signals something far more consequential than strategic ambition. It signals that agreements are conditional, alliances transactional, and sovereignty negotiable when inconvenient. The Bible is unambiguous about where that road leads. Do not exploit the poor because they are poor, and do not crush the needy in court, for the Lord will take up their case. Proverbs 22:22-23. Denmark is not poor, but it is smaller. And history shows that when great powers begin treating smaller partners as obstacles rather than allies, the entire system recalibrates against them. This is how leadership drains away, not in dramatic collapse, but in quiet reorientation. One trade deal abandoned, one intelligence channel downgraded, one defense contract rerouted, one vote withheld at the United Nations. Meanwhile, China does not need to conquer anything. It only needs to wait. Better a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city. Proverbs 16:32. While America argues over ice and minerals, China accumulates ports, standards, debt instruments, and influence. It is not chasing headlines. It is building inevitability. The ultimate tragedy of the Greenland trap is this: America does not actually need Greenland to remain powerful. What it needs, urgently, is credibility, restraint, and strategic patience. Those are the assets we are spending. History teaches that the most dangerous moment for a superpower is not decline, but confidence without wisdom. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. Greenland looks like a prize. The numbers look seductive. The strategic arguments sound compelling. But when you calculate everything, economics, alliances, legitimacy, and long-term influence, the equation changes. The island is not the danger. The decision-making mindset is. The question is no longer whether America can take Greenland. The question is whether America still remembers what made it worth following in the first place. What does it profit a nation to gain the whole world and yet lose its soul? Mark 8:36, adapted. The Greeks didn't conquer Troy by force. They did it with a gift too tempting to refuse. Greenland looks like a prize. The math says it's a warning. The question isn't whether America can take it. The question is whether America can afford the cost, not in dollars, but in industry, alliances, credibility, and moral authority. Subscribe if you want to understand the calculations behind the headlines. I'll keep showing you the math.